straight in the buck stops. No ramble,
Bang.
no warm-up, no easing him into it. He's here at 7. Where have you been?
G'day, guess. I was at the Hall of Fame last night.
Well, you start at 6 here.
Well, you were the one that said, take the extra hour and come in at 7.
I did too. I forgot that.
And now you criticise
What a
me.
nice
This
fella.
is the one point that I want to come up to at some stage at the end of the buck stops. Yeah.
You do it now.
This is like coming in and going into the centre bounce without even. I've only just put my boots on.
Yeah,
I'm
no warm-up.
warmed up. I'm not stretched.
Yep. It's not your first game, though.
I'm a bit achy. I've had a couple of anti-inflammatories.
Hey.
I don't know whether I'm going to be able to jump straight in the way that you want me
mate,
to.
Hey, you're in the super. It's not like it's AFL. You're in the super rules.
So I don't get a choice.
You should be right with us, two old hackers. In here.
All right,
Hey,
so-
you're coming off. No, hang on. We are going to ease.
Let me
into it, of
ramble a
course.
little, please.
You're coming off a Hall of Fame night last night.
It was awesome. I went there with Jet, so I asked him about 3 weeks ago. I said, "What do you reckon? Do you want to? There's what I would suggest is the AFL's best night, the Hall of Fame.
How old's Jet?
Jet's 15. I said, you'll need to put a suit on, mate. He goes, how do you reckon a 15-year-old responded?
Has he got a suit?
With a positively. Yeah, we went and bought one.
Yep.
So he got a tux from Men's Club.
Yep.
He got a black on black.
Yep.
And he was all over it.
Yep.
He wouldn't do his hair though.
Right.
He did not do his hair.
So what style did he go with then?
Well, it's just like a messy spike mullet.
Right.
It's
So he's got the mullet.
it's a decent it's a massive sort of mullet.
That's okay,
and
mate.
it looked like if he puts his hand through it for 4 or 5 seconds, it looks like a totally different haircut. And then he goes and does that all night.
To be
Here's-
fair, he wasn't going there to meet chicks. He was just going there to celebrate.
Yeah, with
footy.
Dad, but dragged along by Dad.
What so? Just wanting to look good is not there.
Pretty
So
much.
the
When
only
you-
reason you do your hair is to meet chicks.
When you're
is
15,
that what you're saying?
When you're 15.
Yes?
When you're 15.
Okay.
bucks.
It's important when you're 15. At 15 years of age, I remember walking with my son when I was 15. We went to the Southland shopping.
Crazy horse.
Not Crazy Horse. No, we didn't, Gary. I waited till he was 16. And I was talking to him. I thought that I was talking to him, and I looked around. He's about 20 metres behind me. You don't want to be seen with your dad at a shopping centre when you're about 15 years of age. So did he walk alongside you last night?
Why is he walking 5 metres in front of me, and then I walk up to him and he's 5 metres behind me? Now I know exactly what it was.
Did he enjoy the night?
Oh, look, he did. He was asleep for part of it, but one thing Jet does really well is he's very confident when he meets new people. So
That's great.
He's been exposed to a little bit. So he shook every guy's hand and looked them in the eye, and he hugged every woman that he met. Like he would say,
I take it back. He was there.
He would
to
say,
go
"Get
chicks.
it," like he said, like, "Oh, hi, how are you?"
Right.
Like, bring it in type of sense. He's a ripper. So it was a great night. It was an awesome night. It actually we got home. We were home about 10:30, 10:45. So it wasn't a late night.
Oh, right. Really?
And it was done really well. And I heard you mention Jared. He was brilliant.
Yep,
the interviews
always.
were brilliant. And
Sarah too.
yeah, well, absolutely. It was actually really well done. The more we go along though, it does feel like a production, doesn't it? It was like wrapped up with a.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's
thanks
good.
for
I mean,
coming.
the execution is really good. Was there? I know the whole night is a highlight, but was there anything in particular that you learnt or you saw last night that sort of stuck in your mind more than anything else?
The Simpson medal story from Bill Dempsey
Great
was
story.
amazing, and
Great
I
story.
had a chance to get over and say hello to him and meet him, and he was just over the moon, thankful. It's like this is not what I ever expected, and his interview was amazing. So that was great. Mike Fitzpatrick's. We think about modern day footballers, and the fact that they might have. So the young footballers these days that might have something else in their life other than football, and we wonder whether they're really, professional, whether this means enough to them. Mike Fitzpatrick, for the first 3 or 4 years of his Carlton career, spent half of the time over in England studying. Like the modern media, etc., need to be reminded of that. So he had to win his spot back. So he's at Carlton in 75, first year. 73 and 74 is at Subiaco. 75. It was a full year at Carlton, but then in 76, 7 and 78, he spent half of that time over at
But the
studying over in
football
England.
season or not?
Half of the football season.
Yeah.
So he
I remember
came
as a
back
young
for the second
man
half.
thinking, how could this guy give up footy to go and study?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just incomprehensible.
Well, my brother, he played and he was a Rhodes Scholar too. He worked on the RTA while he was playing here.
Right.
A road scholar like Johnny from Epping.
At the Road Traffic Authority.
But then he said he was talking about. He obviously
Nice
spoke
one.
about his relationship with Dave. I didn't. Yeah, that was good. Well done. So he came back in '79 and dedicated himself, or '78. Had to play a couple of games of Rezzies, and that was obviously David Parkin putting the foot down, saying you're either in or out.
Yep.
And then '79 dedicated himself and had the career that he had beyond that. But that was a pretty interesting story as well.
Yeah, they're great old stories, though, aren't they, too? And you think about Bill Dempsey, at his age, he played in the 60s, and you'd think that you're probably never going to be recognised for anything ever again. Like your career's over and your life, you moved on, and you're getting older, and then somebody sends you a letter or you get a phone call or whatever to say, okay, we've nominated you to go into the AFL Hall of Fame. I mean, it must be like an
Australian Football Hall of Fame. That's been pointed.
Sorry, what did I say? The AFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, actually, and that was never more evident than last night. Obviously, a couple of guys from West Perth.
Tassie.
Yeah, the guy from Tassie, so 1,200 games. So there was, and actually I was sitting with Rui, who hasn't been inducted yet. He's going, Jesus, a lot of blokes that didn't play AFL. I said, yeah, Rui, the game's been going on. The game's been going a long time, a lot longer than than we've been around. And there was a time when SANFL footy and WAFL footy was happening on a par with Victorian football. So, it was a great night.
So Russell Leavitt was inducted as a legend. Nicky Winmar, Michael Taylor, Matthew Pavlich, Ted Tyson, who may not be that familiar. He's the 11-time goal kicker from West Perth, 6 times kicked a century. Terry Cashin is the young man or the older man. 7 best and fairest with Clarence Longford and Sandy Bay. Bill Dempsey, 43 games with West Perth and a Simpson medalist, and then Mike Fitzpatrick. And as Tim pointed out, Beck Judd wasn't inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was a mistake, an honest mistake. I saw the front page of the paper. I thought, oh, well, here we go. Righto, the buck stops. This is you. Okay. Normally on Monday you're in here and talking about the big issues. You're in on a Wednesday.
Well, I reckon the first one I want to go to is Melbourne. And the issues are real, Gaz. I hate to tell you, but when you've got things that are happening off field that are taking away from the focus on field, it has a massive effect. So there have been some things that have popped up. Obviously, some personnel, but the Stephen May Melksham issue. Anything that takes the focus away from the playing group has an impact, and the only way to get through it is to win, because the external pressure builds. The stories build, the what-ifs build, and now there's 3 losses in a row. They need to arrest it, and the only way that you can get the other side of it is to win. Now, that may, and that's harder than it looks when you aren't quite at your optimum.
Why don't clubs come clean then and be honest about these things? Because we hear from them all the time, oh, these issues aren't affecting us. We're dealing with them over there, but they don't affect us here.
Well, what they're probably saying is what's happening outside of our 4 walls is not something we can control, so we can't be affected by it. But the fact is that the 4 walls isn't just the staff, isn't just the players, it is the staff and players' partners, it's their kids, and chat happens at school, and the media, the narrative bleeds in through girlfriends and wives and partners and mums and dads and brothers and sisters. And then when you leave the 4 walls of the football club and you go to the sanctuary of your home, and then all of a sudden your loved ones are asking you about this, that and the other, it becomes insidious. So this is an issue. We lived it with a really strong environment. We had issues around our list management. Then we had do better. These are things that were taking our focus off being a better footballer and being a better football team. And it becomes difficult. It adds a weight.
Your point about winning is the only thing in the end.
Correct.
Because last year there was talk about it as well.
Yes.
There was all these different issues which people said this will bring Mel. You know, the same messages came through. The same people said the same things, and they kept winning.
But I agree, absolutely. But they went through a period there where it was 50-50, as you said. It was 4 wins, 4 losses. We spoke about this last week.
Yep.
You do need to win through it, and if you don't win through it, it only elevates and thickens the soup that they're in.
Hand up. Did I not call out Brent Harvey then? When I mentioned, That was a mistake. Of course, Boomer Harvey. If I didn't read out Boomer, then that was just my oversight. Boomer was another inductee and absolutely worthy. I'm very, very sorry.
Number 2 was Vossy Spray, and everyone's had their say about this, and I apologise if I'm reheating something.
No, that's
here,
okay. That's okay.
For you, Watso. But everyone thinks externally that it's about winning and losing. And we know that it is. We've just spoken about Melbourne winning through it. We think it's about winning and losing, but coaching is about standards, and it's about being better than you were yesterday. So to see Vossy go off at his team, and when we see it go off, I mean, we've seen some, obviously coaches in bygone eras where that was their default, and to be calm was the thing that stood out. But basically to be emotive and direct and passionate about a performance or about a situation, that was clearly a message from the coach to say, if you want to be as good as I think you can be, if we want to hold ourselves to certain standards, you can't perform the way that you're performing right here, right now. So that's just about saying it doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. It's on our own assessment of where we think we are and what we're capable of. This is not good enough.
We'll get to Collingwood in a moment. Craig McRae said as much as well. When in the post-game press conference, they talked about, do you look at finals now? And he goes, we don't look at winning. We don't even look at winning. We look at winning habits, which I loved. We'll get to Collingwood in a moment.
And I think that is, when a coach that's losing says that, when a team that's losing and a coach gets up and says, look, we just need to get A, B, and C right, we think, oh, that's rhetoric. It just sounds it just sounds hollow and not correct. But when we see coaches that are in programs that are going forward, that are winning and that are getting the results, but still setting those standards, it's the same job, it's the same responsibility right across the board.
So does Vossy then say to one of his assistants, I'm going to give the players something here at three-quarter time that I haven't given to them before, and they talk about how that's going to be delivered, or do you think that just instinctively came out of him at three-quarter time when he went out there?
I would suggest that it would be instinctive. I think that Vossy's been – I know him somewhat. I don't know Vossy intimately, but what I know of him is that he has the strength and conviction to trust his innate read on a situation, and I think that would have been delivered pretty emotionally, pretty much in the moment.
There's a fierceness about him when you talk to him that you like. Not that it's evident all the time, but you see something in him that you think, okay, there's a directness about this bloke.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't like to get him riled at any point in time.
Yeah, I think, and John O'Brien has spoken about it, and I can only imagine sort of what that feels like. Yeah, I think you need to be in the moment to feel that significantly.
Why don't you do one more? We'll take a break, and then the Wisp's got a couple of the toughest questions you'll have to face this year.
This will be the third one's a quick one. I just think the Hawks are exceeding expectations. Their win-loss of 4-9 doesn't read like anything special, but I just love the feel that I get from them, the attitude that they bring, their energy. They've had great system and structure with the way that they move the ball, but they're adding grunt to it, and they're adding a real desire, intensity, and willingness in the contest right across the board. They'll miss some players that seem to be real important structurally to them, but they'll find a way to buffer that. So that's a tick to the coaching panel and Sam Mitchell and his panel to be able to put that together. They're playing so much better football than I thought that they would be capable of. And it's not, as I said quite often, it's not about my expectations, but I just think that if you're a Hawthorn supporter, I reckon you're looking at that. They'd probably already be saying, if this continues for the rest of the year, it's great. We'll get good suite of draft choices, and then we'll thicken the soup and go again. But I just think that they've been really good.
Pushed 3 out of 4 points. Melbourne at 10 points when they hadn't lost a game, and they have been competitive. No question about that.
So this is the fourth one. You want to ask a few questions?
I'm wondering how.
This is usually Garry's.
I know. I'm wondering how you feel watching Collingwood play.
I love it.
The way they are now. Do you feel? But in that, do you also feel how wasn't I able to then in the last 12 months of my coaching get them to play with the same excitement when we had the ball? Great defensive, team, but unable to get them to move the ball this way.
The team looks like 18 and 19 all over again. And there's a reason for that.
What is it?
Because pretty much the same team.
Right. So you didn't have the same cattle available to you to be able to play this way. Is that what you feel?
So here's my excuses. We were heavily affected by COVID.
Yep.
We lost a third of our staff, and we relied on the diversity of our staff, I believe, more than anyone.
This off-field, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, hey, don't snap at me. I'm just
yeah.
clarifying.
This is part of we.
Yep.
Back to you.
No, I'm just passionate about this.
Good.
So I believe that we were negatively affected by COVID more than others for the reasons of diversity and the fact that we spread our responsibility and the contribution for what we did in our environment and therefore onto the field more than most. I don't. That's a supposition, but that's the way I felt about it because we really felt the loss.
So what did you do differently that other clubs did then? In saying that,
building into that, we were so even across our staffing, and we're getting away from it here, but we were so even across our staffing to build it through the middle of the tens, and then to 17, 18, 19, we built something that we felt that we had a really good balance. We worked really hard. We were flying in our preseason going into 2020. COVID hit. Hub, et cetera, and we lost a third of our staff. We had personnel issues. We lost key players on the field, and we lost momentum. And we really struggled to put the pieces back together, and we were impacted more so. We still went and won a final in West Coast, and like we've.
You wanted them to play like we're seeing them play now, though. Like they defend and you wanted them to move the ball this way?
Yeah, well, see...
not exactly the same way because every coach is slightly different in the instruction they might give the player.
Just go back and... Well, it doesn't matter. If you go back and have a look at how we developed through 18 and parts of 19, when we went with hands through the middle or we spread the ground and we went fast going forward. So not exactly the same as what they're doing now. I think Fly's done an amazing job with how he's pulled it all together. But not dissimilar. We were attacking. I think we were the sixth best offense, but we scored really heavily from stoppage in particular, and we were able to go forward. So that's one thing. Yep. I think we got COVID was really challenging for us. 2, we just didn't have any consistency with our personnel, and 3, people wonder, okay, well, how do you put all this together? You got to do the basics well, and when you do the basics well, when you have trust, when you have connection, when you feel good about your footy and when you're really clear about your role, and the personnel issues and the muck in the system for us, which was after 20 was the list management and then the do better. Like early 21 was a really difficult period and we weren't able to win through it.
So when you say you lost a third of your staff, how's that different to any other club?
We were probably spread wider.
How do you know that?
I don't know. As I said, it's a supposition. Right. But all I know, I suppose.
But you're basing that on a very big chunk of what Tim's asked you the question. You're saying that on the basis that it might be different to other clubs, but you don't really know.
No, that's what I said. It's a supposition. Right. So I suppose to compare it to other clubs is not the salient point. The point was that we knew how much we relied on elements that we lost. Now, that other clubs might say the same thing.
Yeah, which they probably would.
I feel like we were really heavily impacted by it. And clearly, when you stack us up against the rest of the competition, we dropped away worse and had a worse result than we did otherwise. Now, that's been slated to different things externally, but I would slate it off to the fact that we valued every member of our staff.
But every club would say that.
Yeah.
Every club would value every.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they don't.
But how can that make it more different to any other club?
Well, all I know is how we lost important people that provided structure and safety to some of our players and to each other that had an enormous impact on our capacity to do what we had been doing.
Can I ask this question? Because a few weeks ago you said also about, and it raised a few eyebrows when you talked about Grundy and Cameron's influence, and we've seen Mason Cox play 2 really good games again since he came back into the side and in tandem with Cameron at the moment.
Yep.
Do you think that Grundy's going to have to force his way back into this team? If they were to continue to play like this in tandem, is he necessarily just a walk-up start to come back into the team then?
I think the short answer is yes, but I don't know exactly how that will play out. I mean, we we always go to these what ifs, assuming that 100% of the people are going to be available.
I get that,
Mason,
but if
Mason
they are,
might not be playing, or Darcy Cameron might not be playing if Brodie Grundy hadn't got injured.
If he was available this week, would you play him?
I would think he would play. Yeah.
And how would that look?
I don't know.
No, well, I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking for an answer. If you've got Cox in his career best form, you got Cameron in career best form. If Grundy's available, I'm asking you if you would play him.
Well, I think he would play, but I don't know. I don't think they'd play the three talls from what I've seen of the coaching.
But you're saying sorry, I'm not badgering you, but you say I play him. Okay, who goes out, or how does that work?
I don't think they'd play the three talls.
So who goes out?
I'm not sure. Who would you play, Gaz?
I'd play the two blokes that are playing right now. So you would earn his way back into the side.
You would play him in the twos.
Yeah.
Okay.
And having been out for a lot of footy, I'd make him earn his way back in.
Yeah. Okay.
On what we're seeing right now, I would play those two guys.
Okay.
But then, like it might just be that we're talking about sort of the fact that, we've just seen those two guys play so well in tandem, and you forget, Grundy's contribution, that type of thing. But I don't think they've lost anything, because by him being out injured, Cameron's had more time to develop even better, to become a better player. And Mason Cox too, he is looking, I know he's done this before.
Coxie's put a couple of games together.
Yeah, and he's done this before, hasn't he? Where he's actually looked like he's going to
theoretically,
blossom, and he hasn't. So I don't know whether or not he's given us enough consistency yet.
So I understand. It's not as much of a headline if you go, Tim and Garry said that they would play Brodie Grundy in the VFL, as if I said it.
No,
that's why I'm not saying that.
Yeah, that's okay. But you're in the media now, though.
No, I understand that, but I don't have. You don't have enough information. One, and two, there's what the coaching staff are trying to achieve. They will make the best decision on where.
That's true, but this is actually just confirmation of what you said about 3 weeks ago, and you did raise eyebrows when you said it about the fact that Cameron and Mason Cox could be a great duo in combination, and Collingwood wouldn't lose out a lot by Grundy not being out there.
No,
which is absolutely true.
You're misquoting me there. I said that they wouldn't lose much in the ruck role because I rated Darcy Cameron's capacity to come up and step into the void in the ruck role. The major issue was going to be how they handled the taller forward or aerial challenge in the front half. And in the last month in particular, even though Ollie Henry was quiet on the weekend, Craig McRae has said that we see him as a key forward. He's playing as an aerial player for us, which is not ideal, but he's playing that role, and that is his standout strength.
Okay,
which is
I stand corrected.
Let's get some news headlines, and we'll deal with the Jason Horne-Francis situation.
Which is still the buck stops here, mate.
Hey, the Bucks is hot under the collar about this too.
He mated us. He just mated us.
No, he mated you.
There's more mates where that came from.
And you stopped badgering him too. That's coming in loud and clear off the text messaging this morning.
Well, he and I have worked together for 4 months without this sort of tension.
I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's getting badgered, and I'm hot under the collar around a specific issue.
Okay, put it on the table.
So I went to the Hall of Fame with my 15-year-old son, and I had a thought over the weekend. If I was Jason Horne-Francis' parents, how would I feel about how he has been treated by the industry? So I'm not just talking about the club. I'm not talking about the media. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. But I feel like, what are we doing to this kid? He is an 18-year-old who is probably really struggling within himself. We're seeing his behaviours that are coming out that are showing quite clearly that he is struggling in himself. In the challenge that he's facing, it's got worse and worse as the expectation has grown. And these expectations weren't his. They were placed on him externally. And this is where the sports media, social media becomes a big thing. So he's a number one pick. He's expected to be a certain player. He's gone into a club that has struggled, and he's become the main story out of the North Melbourne Football Club. I had a thought last night. If I was the mother and the father, would I want my son to be in that situation? And the answer is no. It would be better for him in his life to not have to be under this level of scrutiny before he is capable of handling any of this scrutiny.
Okay, so he is a young man, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. Which part of the commentary around him do you think, though, has been the unfair part about it?
I don't. See, this is the thing. I don't think it's a specific, because I think individually the comments maybe about his body language or about wanting to go home. I mean, all right. So there's a specific. He at the moment, I think at the moment. Do you think that he'll leave North Melbourne at the end of the year?
I don't know. I really don't know.
To leave?
I really don't know.
Do you think, Gaz? Do you think that he'll want to leave North?
I reckon he's thinking about it.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But even that's, I think he's thinking about it. So, and through our bias, we are already. He is already being judged by the masses, by the football community, for something that hasn't happened yet. He's already been judged about. Why don't you just stick with North, mate? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Nothing's happened, but our bias has us judging this kid's character, and he is a kid. He might be a mentality of a 13 or 14-year-old there somewhere, emotionally or mentally. We don't know, but I see him struggling physically, and I don't feel comfortable with the way the game is not supporting this kid, and the game being not just the game being the industry.
Okay, what about North Melbourne's role in all this, though? Do you think they should be protecting the kid more than what they are? He's in his first year of football, right? Their season's done. Should they give the kid a spell? Should they just be saying to him, okay, look, enjoy yourself for a couple of weeks, go away from the club, clear the air if you want to?
Well, I think one of the challenges with leading and mentoring in this regard is you don't want to withdraw the person from the duress. You've actually got to help them through it. So I don't think it hurts. It might be a week or two here, yes, but I've got no idea how North Melbourne are handling it. I presume that they are really trying to wrap their arms around him, trying to support him as much as possible, still giving him like the strong messages around this is what we need from you behind closed doors. But we're in the social media era. I don't reckon a young player who clearly doesn't have the skills required to handle the situation that he's in, I don't think he's ever been under so much duress in the history of the game. I've never seen
anyone's been under this duress.
I think he's not. He's just a kid, and he needs support. Nothing but love and support. And he's getting criticism, and he's getting stereotyped.